So Rishi Sunak this morning claimed that he was looking into options to ensure that this appalling miscarriage of justice will be sorted out, and he's going to clear all the victims of charges. Would that include the victims who went to court to clear their names and found that their original convictions were upheld? This is partly because of the post office apparently still suppressing information or having destroyed information and documentation. And the whole point is these sub-postmasters and mistresses were subjected to the most appalling abuse of the legal system. Number one, by the post office conducting its own investigation, not allowing the police to do so. And number two, by denying the defendants access to the material evidence, access to the information that they had got from their computer system. If the computer system was the thing which was at fault, it makes it surely means that every single charge which is even remotely linked to the Horizon accounting software has to be thrown out of court. Compensation has to be provided, but before that even gets to that stage, the original money that was taken from these people needs to be returned. And it's not just simply about gestures and couching them in the framework of compensation. The post office has effectively stolen money. And it doesn't matter, really, what the charges are. The charges were predicated on a faulty system. That should automatically destroy any charges, any convictions which were based on it. Automatically. And that should have happened in 2019, the moment that the Horizon software was exposed as faulty. The moment. And yet, here we are, 4 years, 5 years later, and we're still dithering, and the government is only moving because there's been a sensational drama which demonstrates in emotional, graphic language that there was dodgy dealings going on at the top of the system. And people who've been hurt, Lee Castleton says, I'm really, really angry. Well, of course he is. But I think his underlying emotion is really, really tired, really, really depressed, really, really frustrated by the ganging up of the entire machinery of British authority. It's not just the post office, it's the law as well. And politicians. And Sir Ed Davey, and in fact, the top of the libdems management, they've all had their hands in this appalling post office pie, and they've done nothing to help. Nothing. So it's not just the Conservatives who have to look at this, it's the Lib Dems, and I'm afraid also Labour. Because all this was set up under Labour. All this, the real damage was done in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Who was in power then? Labour. And we come back to the thing that I keep saying, and I know there's people who come on here and look at this and think that I belong to one camp or another, that I'm tribal. I'm really not. I respond to the situations. And although I have had tribal loyalty to the Conservatives, although I have investigated UKIP at close quarters, I joined UKIP with the thought that maybe this was an answer to the problems in Europe. I never incidentally endorsed the idea of leaving Europe, and I specifically voted against leaving in the referendum. But I thought that UKIP or smaller parties might be the answer and the way forward. I still think that, by the way. My problem with UKIP was that the higher command structure around UKIP was demonstrably racist. I called it out, and I went back to what I knew, which was the Conservatives. But by that point, I realised I was no longer in a party I recognised. I always considered myself to be a fairly wet Conservative, in Thatcher's terminology. I was much closer to the ideology, if you want that, of Norman St John Stevens than I was to some of the big toughies in the Thatcher government. And I was certainly, as time has gone on, I feel more lost politically. I don't believe I'm a natural Labour Party member, but every time there was a local election, every time I stood, the local Labour candidate would always sidle up to me and say, "When are you joining us?" And I realised when I met Piers Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn's brother, that actually I was to the left of Jeremy Corbyn on many issues. But I would still not consider myself to be a member of the Labour Party. I never have been a member of the Labour Party, and I think it would be disingenuous for me to become a member. It's not where I feel I belong, but I certainly don't feel I belong in the present Conservative Party, which puts me in a strange position. And so, yes, from this position of a biased impartiality, I think when it comes to the post office, all three main parties are seriously tarnished. The Labour Party, the Conservative Party, and the Lib Dems. And all three should be getting up to try and sort this out and repair the damage that was done under their management. Under their management. They are directly responsible for the distress that has been caused, and there are at least 4 deaths that can be traced back to this computer muddle. And I think as we enter an age of AI, we need to bear in mind the lesson of Horizon. That computers are not infallible. That computers may not make mistakes, but mistakes can be programmed into their system. And computers are only as good as the people who put the numbers in. Or, in the case of Horizon, this watertight system was not watertight at all. The claims which were made about it were fake. And some of the claims which were made about AI, believe me, are fake.